I've been looking for years for this one idea of when I talk about my conscious mind, or my life, or my emotions, or my thoughts, or my this or my that. Who is the one that owns all this stuff? They keep saying my. Who am I that has these things?
When I contemplate stuff like that, I instantly feel dizzy, dude.
Well, I think this is important now because I have spent a lot of time with this, and because I came up with an answer that I'm fairly happy with. But then when you come up with the answer, you realize, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. You're like, oh, now I've opened up a can of worms. So the idea is that, all of these things that change throughout our lives, our emotions change, our thoughts change, our bodies change, our circumstances, our possessions, our relationships, our location, everything about you changes. Everything about your personhood. Except for one thing. You're still there. Like if you change out all the parts on a car, eventually it's still the same car legally if the VIN number is still there. Once you change the VIN number, it's a different car, right? The VIN number is essentially attached to the frame. But what is it about you that all these things are changing, but you're still there? And what I've come up with is essentially it's probably something that people have heard, the witness, the idea of the witness, or the I am presence, or what works for me is awareness itself.
Do you associate that with a sort of an internal teacher? Or
it depends where. So this awareness, which I identify as the eternal self, this is who I am. But now I can bring this awareness into different realms. So I can bring it into this human body, which is, it's constantly changing. But I identify myself with the body and my circumstances and my current thoughts and troubles and emotions. But those change, and I'm still here. So it's looking for that one that is observing all of these things, not the things themselves.
I think it's interesting. I have also sought for that in my affairs in life, and I think the way that I sought that, or the way I experienced the I am presence back in, like, say, my addiction, for example, was through external things. Now it's more of a feeling, and I think I might have just answered my own question here with the internal teacher stuff. I allow that presence to speak through me, and I allow that presence to be the best of me. And I think that's all that could ever be expected of a person.
I might just be fucking with your words, but who are you that is taking that presence that you're talking about into your marriage or a meeting or a job?
Well, you're getting into things that can't really be answered in language. Like, it's like, for me to try and verbalize like stuff that there's really no words for is I'm going to be sitting here looking like a first grader in a 12th grade math class. You know what I mean? Like,
no, that's actually what I'm saying is, I mean, we all spend our own times mastering certain things, but this is the one that I've been, dare I say, obsessed with for quite some time. And I think it's a solid answer, but it seems like I can't really get the idea across. However, it's the best way to describe it is that when you drop all things, when you leave everything at the door and just drop everything that you're tying to yourself, that you're identifying with, everything, it'll still be at the door when you leave. You can pick it right back up. But if you just are just blank awareness, just looking at it like a movie. another way to look at it is who are you that, you remember being aware when you were a child, maybe just an early childhood memory, and you can see the memory. Right now it's just a memory, but you can see that memory. Who is it that's seeing the memory? What about you is seeing the memory? Or who was it that was there that is the same then that is now? And what I would, again, point to is just the simple idea of awareness itself. But here's why it's so tricky. And it is your natural state, but this is why it's so tricky. Is because it's like, I've heard it said this way, is that it's like the knife can't cut itself. This is the eye that cannot see itself. So as much as you look for it, any concept that you come up with about this thing, it's not a concept. It's not a phenomenon. It doesn't exist in time and space. And if you look at it, like it does, if you think about it, once you touch this thing that you're looking for, but you can't see, because it is you. It's the eyeball that you can't see. Does that thing age? Has that ever aged? Is it the same age now, or has it aged? That awareness of you aging, that awareness of the events around you. Does that age, or is it always the same?
Something tells me that is eternal, and I think you said that also. Did you say? Yeah. Okay.
No, I did not say it, but I would suggest the same thing. That when you think about it, when you just confirm it within yourself, it doesn't seem like that's ever died. That would be
a deep meditation to get into all that.
Right. It doesn't seem that would ever have been born, rather, or that it would ever die. It's just simply been the same always. You can't. I mean, can you set that? Like every part of you changes. Can you set it down? Can you leave it behind? Can you forget about it? It's just the awareness of everything. And you are the awareness.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking of...
That's a heavy one. I'm talking about... what are you thinking about?
Well, I guess that incites kind of... let me just say this. Where my mind goes is to memories and memory lane and experiences that I've had, I guess, and that's probably my effort to try and quantify what you're saying and to try and grasp and try and put it into words. And what you're doing and what we're both doing here on this is sharing our gifts and our experience with love and I guess in hopes that, somebody else doesn't have to go through the struggle that we went through to get here. I mean, am I wrong?
And yeah, that's right. So yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. Do you argue with yourself in your own head?
That reminds me of something a friend of mine told me one time. He's like, you can talk to yourself, but don't answer yourself, And there's also like exercises where you have a conversation. To answer your questions, yes, of course, yes. There's been moments where I'm in disagreement or out of alignment with myself, right? And of course, that's a problem. And
I answer myself all the time. I have full-blown conversations, like not just two people either. Usually, it's intuition versus intellect.
I guess doesn't it ultimately matter though if you can't like really have any growth experience if you're answering yourself from a higher level as in a state of consciousness like that's more divine or more close to the divine than when you were talking or when you were the original part of yourself that was at maybe... I mean, you're not asking me for guidance or anything like this, and I realize that. I'm kind of glad because I wouldn't know what to say.
Oh, no, give it to me.
I'll give you some guidance with that?
You can give.
I would say if you're... Okay, how about this? So, like, if you're having a conflict within yourself rise above it in the form of meditation. Bring yourself closer to the divine and re-examine that particular conversation, or maybe try and have a conversation with those parts of you that were having the conversation as a way to merge the divine with the human aspect. Because, it's part of the human experience to have, struggles in the thought world, and there's a lot of fourth dimensional conflict and stuff we're going through with whatever.
I wasn't intending to tie this together, but it's reminding me that this plays into this original point that I am likely going to keep hammering throughout our talks.
Oh man. I already forgot it. Tell me what it was.
Well, about awareness itself, about the what is the eternal essence of self. And I think I'm keying into that, and I'm pointing at it, and I'm asking for confirmation. I have confirmation in myself, I believe.
I think you're guided to that consciousness by your internal teacher, I would say. How about that, man?
See, even the word, well, okay, so...
How do you like that? How about them apples?
Pretty good apples. But even those words, so I think I'm cutting past all of it. Like, all of that seems like these certain characteristics of self, or these certain things that they're phenomenons. But I'm talking about the viewer, the one who is aware of the phenomenons, the one who can't be seen. What I'm saying is, for this context, when we're talking about arguing, when you're arguing with your own mind, or you're asking yourself questions, or you're having an internal conflict, you might have just two voices, or you might have a whole round table discussion in your own head, But when, there had been times in my life when I can get completely swept away in that, and you can't get yourself out of it. But this baseline that I'm establishing is that this presence is this concept that I'm telling you is also not a concept. It's not a phenomenon. It's only the watcher. Is when you can identify yourself with this awareness, you can set these other things outside of you. Not fracture self. I don't want to fracture self, but you can not be so wrapped up and thrown about in this tumultuous wave because you're looking at them. You can confront them in this way, sure, but you can also just in a moment's notice you find yourself caught up in your thoughts, but they're not really your thoughts. They're just these thoughts floating by in the sky, and you can choose to engage with them or not, or you can just choose to let them float on by. Or it's like when you're sitting on the park bench, you can, tons of people walk by, you can just let them walk by, or you can stare at them walking by, or you can say hello to them and engage them. Thoughts are sort of the same thing. If you're just sitting back away from your thoughts, you are the observer of these things, not the things themselves. And it's that concept, the more I spend time with the concept that's not a concept, the more I find that it plays into so many different things. And how could it not? I'm claiming that that's the eternal self. And I'd even go further to claim that that's where you meet God. The omnipresence.
It's where we meet God, bro.
Yeah.
Or where the individual, the experiencer meets the experience. It's love seeking love, right? I mean, it's the
or when people say
the path of realization, right? I mean, isn't it? I mean, it's just.
Well, I think it's a whole lots of things. Yeah, passive realization, sure, but so there's these concepts of things like, all right, let spirit work through you, for instance, and making connection to spirit. What does that mean? Allow spirit to work through you. Or when people, lots of different religious contexts say in certain words that I'm God's actor, or how do they say that? I'm acting for
one
God.
of the many instruments of God's voice.
There you go. How do you be an instrument of God? It's not wrapped up in your head.
I don't think we have a choice.
Well, I don't think we have a choice either. The whole thing is just the one universe. The universe, that was kind of redundant, but the universe acting out, or existence acting itself out, evolving over time, right? But I think when the human ego allows itself to just sets itself aside, that whole personhood just kind of sets itself down and says, hey, you go. I don't need to do this. I don't need to think this through. I don't need to relish or my achievements. That's not my identity. That's unfulfilling. I'm just going to let this all go and connect with this is that missing key I was looking for, is how do you do that? How do you connect with God? How do you connect with the universe? How do you just fulfill your potential? How do you know your eternal self? How do you seize that? And, no matter what I've studied throughout life, truly finding how to do that. And when you set everything aside and you can truly find that eternal self, the one who has always been the same, who has never changed, who is never born, who never dies, who is always there. What is it about you that was always there? And that is the connection to the eternal. That is what I'm suggesting. I have a note here: end the war within yourself.
Wow, that would probably mean I'm completely on the other side and without a human body.
Right. And let me tell you, I spend, years now in this whole self-help, spirituality, getting, not only getting help, but training to help others. And I still have issues at times that I can give all the tips and tricks that I want, but there's still times when I am just wrapped up in my own thoughts. And right, exactly. What do you do about it? So what my point with that is that it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you when that happens. So there are times when it's hard to get out of your own way.
It's only a tick in the grandfather clock of the eons, bro.
Right. But it's like we were talking about, is the thoughts. As long as you're alive, you're going to have thoughts. They're just going to flow through you. Well, see, there's another thing I had on my mind that kind of ties into, is that, don't argue with your thoughts.
Not in front of anyone, anyway.
Yeah, don't argue with your own thoughts. We have this duality about us, and I'm not sure, that's been played out in like the angel and the demon, or, you see on somebody's shoulder. It's not always about, one thing, wanting to do one thing bad and one thing good. It's really sort of a mischaracterization. It's just about conflicting about what's the best way to go about things, And it's like, no matter how much you think about it, you still don't know in the end.
If I can coexist with a given situation and just kind of vibe with it, I get a reading internally on my higher faculties, and often enough from that reading, I'm directed as to which way to behave or what way to move. And I don't know if I can explain that.
Well, okay, so maybe this goes in line with what you're saying, because again, this comes back to the I am presence, or I have to come up with a consistent word. So like awareness, I suppose, consciousness, but those have too much baggage or are easily confused. But the witness. So what we were talking about is, so don't argue with your thoughts, right? Oh, and the thoughts at the road where they meet.
No, it's don't argue with Andy's thoughts. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's not just the angel and the demon where there's like one shitty thing you want to do versus one. It's not like, every day it's you're struggling with whether to drink or not. You know what I mean? Or every thought is whether to I don't know, do something immoral. It's just when you're going through life, there's this conflict of what you're doing, and what you were just saying about. I can't remember how you said it, but you're sort of letting in your higher self and how you're sort of feeling through what to do. Is that what?
Yeah. Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Listening with my heart's ear rather than listening another way.
Well, I guess my concept of the same thing would be can't match up, the conscious mind and how people talk and think, and then their behavior is almost driven by something else. If you acted how you wanted to act all the time, your life would be a whole different thing. But it doesn't. Your behavior is driven unconsciously, right? It's driven by it's trained. Your behavior is trained into you. It's not part of your conscious programming. But I think the way to make decisions about what we're talking about. I keep trying to segue into it and explain all the steps, but I'll just go right to the point is you just do it by how you feel. Really. You just let all the thoughts and emotions and shit go, and the way you let
your grace,
yeah. How do you operate in grace? How do you live in grace? And I think that the intellect and the ego, and this is what is sort of at odds with the nature of things, and it tries to take over. It says we can do it better. I can do it better. And I think that
it's a me thing, right?
I think the ego intellect is maybe now I'm throwing this out there because I think that is like the original idea for the fallen angel. That is Lucifer saying, I can do this better than you. That's the intellect ego trying to work everything out and be in control of everything. And because if you just letting go is a really weird thing because you think everything's just going to fall apart, right? Well, if I just stop thinking about everything and how trying to work everything out, it'll just all fall apart. Well, no, it won't. It doesn't. Because we didn't just spring forth out of eternity, into a vacuum, and now we're all by ourselves.
Yes, I'm loving this.
Yes, we are of the infinite. We are of, not part of, we are of the eternal.
I am of the eternal.
Yeah.
I've been doing these law of attraction stunts, as I like to call them. It's a little stunt, right? I do these law of attraction things where I put myself in a position, I see things from the end. I see it as having happened, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's the way to go. There's a little bit of retraining ourselves that we have to do, which is a little bit of a contradiction. It's more a stripping away of all the garbage we've sold ourselves on as to how to make it in life, and we've sort of taken away our natural ability of how to manifest, if that makes sense. And
I'd probably have to roll tape playback on that.
Yeah, we've stripped it. I don't think manifesting is something that we have to learn. I think it's something that we have to unlearn all the garbage that we've learned.
Yeah, also known as decompressing, right?
What do you think about this? And I've floated this to you before. Is that we've talked about the I am presence, awareness itself, and I've suggested that is the eternal self. And reflecting on this presence, and when you let everything, you stop identifying with all of these things that you call yourself, your own personhood, right? It gives you a meta perspective on not just life, but existence. And it hit me. I was telling you this about, I was watching a documentary on SpaceX, right? And one of the astronauts, she said what hit her as she entered orbit and she looked back at the Earth, and was that it's not like looking at a map. All the boundary lines sort of fall away, and the Earth just looks like one living organism, And when I have this, it was sort of a perfect metaphor for the type of experience that I had when you bring that awareness back to yourself and you don't identify with any sort of concept, not even the concept of like a soul. You even drop that concept because that seems like something like a phenomenon, something you can look at, but who is the one looking at it? When I come back to this concept of just the presence of self, the eternal self, and then look out at the world, the boundary lines between you and I and the world disappear. And it's one living, breathing organism.
Well, what comes to mind is the holy instance, that holy moment where the unity consciousness is felt and experienced. And I guess the shift that occurs from, we'll say, thinking to knowing or experiencing, I mean, that's profound. That's like spiritual awakening. That's what they talk about in 12 steps. That's like, I don't have anything else to compare it to or whatever. So, that psychic shift, that moment, it means something different to everybody. And I think it's just this huge thing. But like, I think that's where all art comes from. I think that's where all music comes from. And I think that's where just probably life comes from.
Here, I'm going to float another idea by you, and I think I've mentioned this before, is that you think you're the actor in this play of life, let's say, right? But in this space where you're looking at the earth, when you're looking at existence, and the boundary lines disappear, it appears as if I'm only the watcher. I'm not the actor at all. The play has already happened, and we're just watching how it happened.
The unraveling of time, dude, right? Like, I mean, that's what's coming to me, man.
How time sort of unfolds.
Well, I guess I'm inspired by what you just said, and I'm drawing little pictures on my piece of paper here. So
that's what it's there for.
Yeah.
It's for little doodles and shit. It looks really smart because like we're taking notes and we're going to ask pointed questions, but it's really just for doodles.
Doodles it is. The word dissolving comes to mind, and the word segues come to mind in a lot of what's been coming up here. Like I keep thinking in terms of segues and transitions and stuff. Just, and I think that's this age. I don't necessarily feel threatened by any great change. I can sense the pain body of the collective, and I draw weird pictures about it sometimes. And I write dark songs about what I feel, I have my moments with that stuff. So, and that's, that's I guess a privilege of being a human being, is that I can express myself. A lot of people can't express themselves with any understanding, any self-understanding, right? Like,
well, as far as people from the past.
Hey, you know what? Hold on here. Here's, one of our teachers, and she will remain nameless at this moment. One of our teachers has mentioned that during this time in this day and age, we're going through things that the people that were here before haven't gone through. We're carrying in new, for lack of a better word, magic into these days. Like so since it is new, it makes it kind of, you got to be inventive, and like it brings out the best in me. I'm challenged to the point of genius. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, in this day and age,
Yeah,
man. Shit has to keep changing, otherwise it would just get boring, right? We are definitely challenged continually, but that seems to be the nature, and the infinite wisdom of God. Let's say that seems to be the nature of it, is that the challenging aspect of life is what pushes it forward, right? Pushes it to evolve, right?
Yeah, and if you can recognize that in your own human, then you've come to like a deep realization, your godliness, right?
If you can recognize that in your own human, yeah. Well, yeah, sometimes that type of a thought is the only thing that, because your individual life gets very challenging, as well as, planetary life, all of us together. And sometimes, yeah, those are the types of thoughts that carry you through when you're going, why do I have more problems? But they're really, they are temporary obstacles that in the end, you grow from. Right? Yeah, I think there's this sort of aspect of self that wants just this cushy, wants to work its way towards this, everything, all problems are worked out sort of life. Maybe that's, I guess, an instinctive part of myself is that.
That's probably our point of origin, like going back. That's like probably like the inception point of us embodying a human form.
Yeah. We're.
Or maybe it just comes with the original installation of us being human. We're born with the motivation and the drive to seek, and to, there's the hunter and gatherer, there's the conqueror, there's all these archetypes that they talk about and stuff. And gosh, I'm really a novice when it comes to talking about that stuff, but I got to tell you, like, certain stuff's just like dawned on me that it leaves me sometimes speechless, and that's another thing that I'm gonna have to iron out somewhere down the road is, how come I get speechless when these big heavy things dawn on me, right? Usually I want to just grab my guitar and play like about for 2 hours and just record it and then play it back to see if I really got anything huge out of what just dawned on me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can't remember those types of like book knowledge very well. I'm more of I internalize concepts and then I think and feel and intuit from that point.
Same.
But as far as remembering like a dictionary, I've never been able to do that sort of thing. But it doesn't mean that I can't recognize sort of an archetypal ancient symbol when it presents itself, just in my waking life or in my own mind, in my internal life or external life. Sometimes I'll have these connective.
Are you in the year of an 8 right now? Is that your year?
I don't know.
Do you know?
Means.
So what's your birthday? It's 11/22, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So 11/22/22. So we got 4, 4, and 2. So that's 6. You are no, you're not in the 8. You're in a 1. You're in the same year as me, dude.
Really?
You're in the year of a 1. How about that? Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Eric's in the year of a 1, and so am I. Wow. Terry Ann bought
How do you come up with a 1? 1 plus 1 is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Oh, wait a
that's
minute.
1.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
2022. I skipped a 2. So it's 6. Yeah. You're in a 3. Yep.
What's the significance of that? Does it matter who you... I guess
it's
just who you ask.
It's your personal year number.
See, I truly believe that all these things are connected. It's sort of naive to think that oh, well, there's nothing to numerology. That's just hocus pocus. However, I don't know what to do with it. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Well, as the
what does it
Violent
mean-
Femme
even
said,
mean.
you just add it up.
I know you just add it up, but like then what? Then whose interpretation or whatever that means is right, or is it that there's a host of people out there?
You know,
that
I
are
guess
studying-
I've been running tests to see, like, I test certain theories and stuff like that, and
That's what I'm wondering. Is there people? I guess there's people that do that, and you're one of them.
yeah, like I added up my year, and then I listened to what they said I was supposed to be experiencing, and then I asked myself if I was truly experiencing that, and then I'm like, well, is this something I'm experiencing because I was preempted by this idea of what a one means and stuff, and that's splitting hairs to me to some degree.
Or is it like a dream? Is it like, what does one mean to you? It's the loneliest number that you ever knew.
That's right, man. Loving the Beatles from afar, wherever they are. Yeah, because I want all the tools I can have in my personal toolbox. If numerology works, then I want it in my toolbox. Do you know what I mean? I'm not gonna not explore what it is or anything about it because somebody told me that it was evil or whatever, right? Like, I'm just gonna check it out and see if it makes any sense to me. There's more of us like-minded folks than we realize, for sure.
Oh yeah, because we mostly hide it because it's not socially acceptable. Still, it's becoming more so. More people are sort of braving their way out there and saying, "Hey, check this out. Has some validity to it."
Hallelujah, right?
Yeah, but also these types of things that people look into that aren't the norm have been bastardized, over time, and you get charlatans in every area of life. So if you can take something that there's something there, and then you can spark somebody's interest with it, you can swindle them with it. So it sort of gets that sort of a vibe to it. Oh, it's just hocus pocus, and people use that to scam your money.
Yeah, you can use any tool in an evil way,
Mm-hmm.
to hurt, maliciously, or you can use it benevolently. I mean, it's, it's we got free will.
But I don't know. There's a lot obviously going on in the world, and like you're talking about, we're constantly challenged. The challenges we're facing. This is not a quiet time in the history of humankind. By any stretch of the imagination, this is something else. But the cool thing about it, though, is it forces people out of their comfort zone. The unfortunate part about it is where, as far as I'm concerned, I'm by far and large not the only one, is that people use wait, how do they say it? Don't let a good catastrophe go to waste, or however it's said. Yeah, don't let a good. So when you scare the shit out of people, it puts them back into sort of a survival mechanism state. They can't think for themselves, and so in order to save themselves, they'll look for a savior, or they're very much more controllable. At that point when they're scared.
More times than not, they're not going to look inside and ask their for internal. They're not going to seek guidance within, right? Because they've been programmed to think they're fucked up.
Right. Well, yeah, that's part of the programming. Is there something wrong with you? And then if you add in all the sort of advertising, and we're sort of waking up to this fact lately, but if you add in all the messages that you get throughout the day to show you that you're not enough. We even do it to ourselves. You watch things like TikTok, and these aren't big mass marketing places. These are just people acting, however it is they act, but they put on this image as if there's something that they're not. And I don't think it's intentionally deceptive on their part, but it looks like they're much happier than they are, for instance, or much prettier than they are, or much more successful than they are. And then, which causes the ego in each person to say, well, I'm not as good as them, and so I'm not enough. This type of a feeling.
You definitely thought about this a lot.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been in this laboratory called the human body for a few years now, so
I want to hear more on the human as a laboratory from you, man.
I think there's always been Chicken Littles out there calling, saying the sky is falling and this shit is going to fall apart. But I really do think that sort of the pot is shaken up enough. It kind of feels like, when you do a detox, you know what I mean?
I sure
do. You can
do.
feel all the toxins and you got to keep flushing them out until they're flushed out. You feel like shit. The whole world feels like that right now. And then there are people that either just in an opportunistic way or, and sort of help these sort of things along, wish to take advantage of that. Now, what I would suggest is that we take advantage of that and say we're not allowing, the rich, powerful people to do that to us. We are going to use this opportunity to wake up to ourselves and stop dreaming.
That's in some arenas of science, they refer to that condition as a healing crisis. In other words, you're detoxing and you've got all these toxins being released and it creates a sense of uncomfort. That's known as a healing crisis.
Okay.
In certain arenas. And so that's, I mean, let's distill that one level. I mean, what is that? That's somebody who's vulnerable, right?
Sure.
So, I mean, what we really want from everybody is somebody to be at their finest and still remain vulnerable to the human condition. To be at a level of mastery, yet still vulnerable and not a jerk, like just not an arrogant idiot. Like some of these power figures, are running on old programs, man. Like, and there's folks, as we know, that have unlearned many, many, many programs. And let's just say this, and who are walking in the light and
being able to weather any storm. I'm sorry, you weren't exactly saying this, but yeah, I think I'd like to be in a place where no matter the storm, I'm unweathered by it.
Hey, don't pressure yourself. Forget about it.
Let's think in terms of opportunity. It's not just the rich, powerful people that have the opportunity to take care of the scampy little people who are all scared. It's we people that have the opportunity to say, wait a minute, I'm not, this comes back to the idea of the eternal self. I'm not just this lowly little human that has to be all scared. And I can recognize that. I got so scared by
I think
all
there's
this
a
shit.
lot of stuff that support what you said, like a lot of stuff going on in life that would lend to that empowering truth that you just said. It's what's come of the times. It's what the ages have presented to us, an opportunity to be our brother's keeper, to step up and show love to the neighbor and just to my favorite method of expression is guitar.
Be our brother. So what does that mean to be your brother's keeper? Or does that mean just like treat others like you treat yourself?
It's just what we're doing right now.
That's what it's doing. What we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
This red light is not on, so does that mean